Hello and welcome, this is Fun, and today we are doing a tier list for Gemblenders, all the level 2 blends from the base set. In S tier, I'll be putting all the blends that are meta defining, or you look at the blend and you say, okay, how can I build a deck around this blend? You start by looking at this blend and then you build your deck around it. A tier, you start by looking at your super blends and then you figure out, okay, what level 2 blends you have, and then you will almost always include this blend, almost without second guessing. It will benefit the deck in very significant ways, or make it more consistent, stronger, all those attributes. Next B tier, you will still consider including it, but it will be more nuanced. It will be more of a question of can you include it? Will it benefit the deck overall? So on, so on. It's you will consider it, but it will be more nuanced. C tier, we begin to see cards that are more weak. They can work, but they're much more situational. You have to think more about them to get them to work. And I would say in a lot of cases, unless they fit just perfectly what you want to do with the deck, you are going to just put them to the side and not use them. They can be used, but they are much more niche. D tier, even more niche or even more difficult to put into the deck, and so on. This is sort of in a reaction to the already created tier list that has been made. I'll link it in the description. I'll be putting a lot of the blends a lot lower than what they did, and a few of them will be put a bit higher. Okay, let's get into it. I'll be starting from D and work my way up to S. That's not to say that one that comes first is worse than the next, but there will be a trend where the further we go in, it will definitely be much stronger than what has been before. Alright, so let's get going. Ram, I think that's the worst card of all. It's a simple 1-1, but with the added benefit of having a plus attack bonus of 1 when a Capra gem is in the discard pile, and which is sort of easy to do, but for just the benefit of having an extra attack. In Gemblender it's not that great because of the round format. Yeah, you can win round 1, but what do you do about round 2 and 3? If this doesn't naturally make you blend into making you stronger onwards, I just don't see the benefit of doing this. I think it's too costly for what the benefit is. Energizer, sure, moving around gems is quite good. And I play Francisco a lot, I like it, but moving just one gem from one hero to another hero, I don't think that justifies the inclusion of Energizer when it comes to deck space, consistency, getting it out or when you need it. I fail to see the benefit of it. It has 2 attack, which is quite good for putting aggression on. But no, I don't see it as a good card. And we have Electron with 2 defense and the ability to switch whenever your opponent blends. So when it comes to getting the 2 defense where you need it, whenever your opponent blends a high attack, you can always just get the defenses where you need them, which is quite neat. I think that's quite unique take on it, but I just don't see the huge benefit of it. I still think you can get around it quite easily, and there's a lot better defenses out there as well. I don't think this slows down the opponent quite enough as you want it to. But yeah, you can get around it. It's not consistent when you want to switch yourself, and that's why I put it down here. Next up we have Glacier. 2 attack and then -3 defense to your opponent, so you more or less always are going to get 2 attack off, which is quite nice, I guess. But this early on, like, I don't really see the super strong benefit of having 2 attack this early. Yeah, it might just, if your opponent's deck and yours is about the same damage wise, strength, you might just win out because you've gotten the 2 attack off earlier in the round 1, and therefore are more likely to win 1 out of the next 2 rounds at least. So I see the benefit there, but when building a deck, even with Aqua Cryo, I don't really see myself considering its inclusion that much, especially because round 1 is so the round format really doesn't invite for early aggro unless it can determinately win you round 1 and while also setting you up for a breeze through round 2 because you now have the leverage. Next up, Anchor. So really good defense. Can you get there? Really good defense, free defense. So that can slow down your opponent quite a lot. It's actually quite a bit better than just 2 defense, even though 2 defense is not to just put to the side. As well, Anchor is also whenever your opponent wants to switch the opposing facing hero, they have to suffer 3 HP, I believe it is. And that's fine. Like, it's additional damage which you wouldn't have, but generally I don't think that switching away I don't think it's high enough a cost to do, and that's why I don't think Anchor has that huge of an effect on the game state as it would otherwise, like as I would want it to have to be of higher tier. Next up is Corruptor. So it has 1 attack and 0 defense, so stat wise it's quite low, it's really low, but the effect is that whenever your opponent attacks it, they have to discard a card from the top of the deck. And like, that can be quite bad if you have a few one-offs or you need all of your blends or the exact energy amount and you just attack into a Corruptor and lose it. That can be quite bad. But I don't usually look at a Corruptor and like, well, what are you even trying to... I just think, what are you even trying to do? I can determine my card draws so well with Bishop and other cards that I'm not afraid of losing those cards. And especially if I have enough high an attack, like, this is not going to slow me down quite one bit. If I'm only attacking for 1 or 2, the benefit of attacking will be lower, but I don't think that's slowing down quite enough to make me value it higher than than D tier. Alright, and then we have what's its name again? Chaser. 1 attack, 1 defense, stat wise quite basic. If it's switched around with another blended hero, both heroes get an attack, or if it's just switched around but it's only blended heroes that gets the attack bonus. Doesn't matter. It gives 2 bonus attacks for blended heroes, so it becomes a free 1 if it's switched, which is quite good early on, and you can do this quite easily with Angel, even though they don't overlap at all. Chaser also have Mirror Chaser in its gem line, so that's quite neat, but I don't think I see myself considering it too often. It can get some good early pressure on, which is quite nice, but other than that, I don't see myself building a deck around it. I don't often see myself consider its inclusion when I'm building a deck. It's quite niche when, like, if when I have to consider it. Alright, and then we have Virus. Yeah, D tier is quite big because I think there's a lot of cards that has a niche, but it's super specific and it's they're difficult to utilize. So that's why D tier is quite big, unfortunately. Virus 1-0, and whenever your opponent puts a gem to an opposing hero, opposing facing hero, they suffer 4 damage. So this is quite good if your opponent wants to put 4 gems onto a hero in one turn, through Francisco, moving them around, attaching, and so on. So they compound the gems. That could be 16 damage if it's 4 gems. So it's quite good damage theoretically. But what happens often is that most decks will have some kind of switch option, so they can switch away from Virus. They will put the gems down before Virus even gets to the field. So, like, apart from very specific circumstances where you can make sure you always will be in the spot, I don't think Virus actually gives that much strength to a deck, and that's why I place it in D tier. Last up, if I remember correctly, yeah, we have Rocket. That's the last one of D tier. 3 damage, 0 defense. It can only attack blended heroes. Often I find that blended heroes at least have some defense, and then Rocket is just a 2-0, and it begins to be very low damage. Yeah, you can attack into 0 defense heroes, blends, and in that case, like, you have a quite strong Rocket, but it really falls off when it comes to round 2, even if it survives, even if it doesn't fall off before end of round 1, depending on how long it goes. And right now we're having quite quick decks, so it will fall off so quickly. I don't think a 3-0 for a specific attack situations is that good. Falls off too soon, and generally I don't quite like it as much. Alright, so moving up to C tier, they will have some more strong benefits, or they are easier to utilize. Actually, like, Convector is just on the verge, but like, Convector has some synergy with what's its name? There's a level 1 hero that gives the front, as long as it's there in the back position, they give a copy of the gem attached to them as an invisible gem to the frontline heroes. And then you put Electro gem on them, and then a Pyro gem on Convector, and then your whole frontline has a Pyro Electro gem. Its the ability is that it gives all, as long as it's on the front line, it gives all other frontline heroes a Pyro gem as an invisible gem. So that, I think that's quite good. Like, the thing is, it's only giving off 2 invisible gems this way, and you already need to get 2 gems on it to make it worth it, and that's why I say that you could use that hero in the back line to give that gem to all of them, including Convector, and then you begin to have some gem advantage. And I think there are some synergies there that I could work on, and that's why I place it in C tier, because it's I actually think it's easier to utilize than all the cards in D tier. You're more in control of it, and so on. Even if invisible gems can be easily disrupted, just put a force switch on a Convector, put it to the back line, your whole front line is deblended and discarded, and I think that is really sad. So it's not that great. It has 2 defense, so I suppose that's quite fine if it gets to be in the right spot. Next up, Hornet, 4-0. But it's deep blends when it attacks. So yeah, it's fine. Like, it's good early aggro, but if you cannot build your deck to move on from there and utilize the pressure you now have put on, it can be quite bad. I don't think it's that strong. It falls off too soon. But it's a fun card. It's a fun card. And with capacitor. Yeah, that's the one. Sorry. They give, you can give another blend a +2 bonus attack, but they're deblended afterwards. And with Hornet, it's already deblended, so it just becomes a 6 attack with the help of capacitor. So you can get some early aggro going on this way, get some bonus damage. Capacitor basically becomes a free one. So yeah, like, I think it's still pretty weak. I would maybe actually put it up one extra damage bonus, and then maybe it would begin to be viable. But yeah, I think there are some synergies and some combinations that makes it viable in some way. I still haven't found it, but I believe in it. And that's why I put it in C tier instead of D tier. I think there is some difference between them. Mountaineer. Mountaineer is a 0-3, so it has pretty good defenses. Yeah, 0-3. It's pretty good defenses, so that's quite nice. It can stop if you have a vulnerable back row hero you don't want out of the back, or you don't want a frontline hero to go into the back. If your gem makeup is a cryo and a capro, like, you can somewhat easily include Mountaineer. The only thing is, it takes up a spot on the field, which you don't necessarily want to. So that's why, like, it's down here in C tier and not up in B tier, because it is actually somewhat difficult to utilize, and it's only certain decks that gets to benefit from it, even if there's a lot of decks that actually wants to be more in control of where they go, being switched around and so on. But yeah, that's why I put it in C tier. Battery, yeah, like, you might argue it should be lower, but I think the reason why I have it here is that it has one application. Whenever you heal one more. And that's it. Up to 3 times. Yeah, during a game, during a round, turn. Sorry, during a turn. It's a 1/1, so it has that defense. Sorry, 0/1. It has that defense, so that's quite beneficial. Like, it's a small thing, but everything goes when you need it for the whole game. It can really extend the game 1 or 2 turns, and that's really what we're looking for in a blend 2 for this. And healing that extra health can, with Glitch Energizer, can actually make the difference between Glitch Energizer being bad or good. If Magnet Battery wasn't here, Glitch Energizer wouldn't see any play, and I wouldn't have made a tournament deck with it, a champion deck even with it at all. So that's why I put it in C tier, because it propels a deck from obscurity into viability. So that's why it's here in C tier and not in D tier. Next up is Shifter. Rotate your heroes, and, like, that's fine if you need to get into position all the time. I don't think that's quite that bad. It's a 1/1, so you do get that attack, which is not that much. It has that 1 defense, which is quite nice. It 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 synergizes with some effects that are in its gem line. You could go out of the way to include in other gem for other gem lines that would benefit as well. Um, and just if you're going this blend line anyway, just including one of them can be quite beneficial, just to be always make sure to be in position. So I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that great either. Yeah, I don't want to go too far. We have a lot of blends more to go on. And next up we have Sprout. And we're getting into the stronger end of C tier, most definitely right now. It's a 1/1, but if it also has an Aqua Gem attached to it, it becomes a 2/2. And that's basically, instead of blending into a level 3, you just have Sprout become a stronger level 2. Yeah, like it has some synergy as well with the gem line, where the next Sprout with actually an Aqua Gem necessary, it gives bonuses to the Sprout's attack bonus and defense bonus. So I don't think that's quite that bad either. There are some synergies that makes it better, but I also just don't think that the strength it has is enough to propel it further up in the tier list. I think C tier is the right tier for it. Next up we have Gall. Whenever you deal damage, non effect damage basically, deal 2 more once during your turn. It has just 1 attack, 0 defense. There's a good amount of effects that just allow you to do some mediocre damage, and then Gall comes in and makes that even stronger. Like even with the gem line, I wouldn't hardly consider Gall in and of itself. There are some very specific effects where I would include it, and also for hero effects. There's one hero effect that allows you to deal some damage, and then Gall magnifies this. So I definitely think there is some utility with it. It's not the strongest, is what I'm getting at. It's not too difficult to utilize. It's just it's very specific where it's utilized, and even that, it doesn't really propel that damage extremely in a high way. It doesn't put it onto pressure where it goes from almost viable to strongly viable. It just becomes slightly more viable. Next up we have Mage, and I guess Mage could be slightly lower. It is a 1/0, so it has 1 attack, so that's fine. I would rather have defenses at this point, but it's fine. So Mage is one of the few made blends for consistency that doesn't just go away once it has been used. Discard 1 Capra Gem from your hand and then search your deck for 2 identical gems. And like, either you put it into a Capra Gem deck that also fulfills the Mage's needed gems, and you can actually, and you just put 8, 10, 12 Capra Gems into your deck, so you always have them to search with. And when you draw into them naturally, I think it's quite fine. It can search out all the other gems that you need, and you can even put 2 mages down to get it even faster, and I think that's quite fine. That's quite good, actually. But the problem is, once you don't run Capra Gems, do you just run them for mages? And how many do you run? It puts some pressure on your deck building because you need those Capra Gems to search all other gems out. And what you can't do with Mage, if you just get 1 Capra Gem, you search out 2 more Capra Gems. And with one of those, you search out the gems that you want, and the other one, you search out more Capra Gems, and then you continue until you're at the end where you use both of the Capra Gems to search out gems that you want. And yeah, which can be quite fine. I definitely think I want to experiment with this more, but I don't think it is that strong as I would like it to be to utilize it more. There was an yeah. Next up we have guard, and 04, so it's like extremely strong defenses. And if it's the only blend on the field, it's 05, and because it's a level 2 blend, it's often will find itself as the first one to hit the field, and it can really be strong defenses. And if you're afraid of losing round 1 and not being able to be setting up for round 2 fast enough, you can really turtle with guard, and that's why I have it at high end of C tier. It's almost breaking into B tier, but I still think you can get around it too easily. There's a lot of switching options in Gemblenders, and like because your opponent chooses when they attack, they can switch before attacking. So even if you switch back into them, they can switch out of it. So I really think that, and also this needs, like, the only reason why I put it is because your opponent has a lot of attack to put tempo, to counter tempo basically. But what if your opponent's not doing that? Like, guard is kind of useless in that sense, unless you're waiting for late game, unless you can utilize it for late game as well, where you wouldn't really have another blend on a deferred hero, frontline hero, and you just put guard there. I think there is some answer for that. There is some, yeah, there is a good reason to do that. So that's why it's high end of C tier, almost B tier, but not quite. I still think it's too easy to get around. And last one for C tier, we have Ghost. It's a 1-0, right? Or no, it's a 0-0, sorry. And if it's in backline, you can pay 2 HP, and then your opponent's backline hero won't have an effect for the next turn. And it's very meta dependent. If you know what your opponent's playing, this can be an easy one-off if you know that there are effects that needs backline effects in your opponent's deck. So I really think in decks that can utilize it, it's an easy one-off, especially if they can search it out easily. And we've seen this change a matchup into where they would lose into they would win, and that's how one champion became and one champion didn't win their finals. So it can be quite nice. It's very niche. It's very specific circumstances, and yeah, like that's why it's high end of C tier. It's not quite B tier because it's so meta dependent. It's not all decks that can utilize it, and even the decks that can, you wouldn't always include it. Yeah, so it's almost always plays fiddle in the middle or whatever. Anyway, that's the end of C tier. Now we're getting into cards that have stronger viability, either because they are just stronger, their effects are just stronger, or that they are easier to utilize. We have Foul. Discard a card from your hand to draw 1 card, and has 2 attack. The attack is nice to put some pressure on. You can utilize that quite a bit, but the effect, discard 1 card to draw 1 card, isn't I don't find it that great, because in Gemblenders you usually need all the cards that you draw. It's very rare to have duplicates or cards you can just discard easily. So even to draw a new card to accelerate is not something I find that compelling all the time. But it does have the benefit that it synergizes with other blends. Catalyst Controller, as an example, where Foul is an easy way to get rid of cards that you only added to utilize their effect with Catalyst Controller. So that way they just become free draws and an easy way to get a discard. So there is that really great synergy. As well, it has some synergy with I forgot the name, but the card that allows you to attach a blend from a discard pile to a hero. But though, like, they don't line up gem wise so perfectly anyway. So like there still is some synergy with getting cards in discard pile and getting to utilize, and that's why it's low end of B tier, though B tier isn't that big. It can put some pressure on. It can draw some cards for sure. But it's not something. I don't look at Foul and say, what deck can I build? It's, oh, it fits with the build. I guess I could utilize it. Has the benefit of it stays around, so you can utilize the effect multiple times. So that's something strong. That's something to say about it. Next up is Reflector. It really depends on the effects your heroes have. And there's a lot of ways to not necessarily break the game, but to get a lot of fun and utility out of your hero effects, if you get my drift. So I think there's a lot of benefit to Reflector, who can copy any effect of your heroes on your field, unblended heroes. It's a 1-0. It's fine attack, but it's really the effect we're here for. Yeah, there's a lot of synergies that you can utilize this way, and that's why it's in B tier. It's quite easy to utilize as well. There's a lot of creativity in it as well, so that's why it's not in C tier, but it's not extremely strong, so that's why it's not in A tier either. Last one in B tier, we have Chiller, 01, and attach a action from your hand to it, and then you can pay 3 life to use that effect. There is a lot of what's it called? There is the force switch, but you need to be behind on life to use it. I forgot what the names of these action lines are, and there's a lot of other actions that you can utilize a lot. Like, if you need it, you can put a switch on it, you can put a gem search on it, and so on and so forth. Blind search. There's a lot of benefit to you reuse these actions, and if you're fine with losing round one, like, even if you lose it quicker than you might want to, if you're somewhat fine with that, there's a lot of benefit to reuse all these actions with Chiller. Even a draw will net you an +1, so it just becomes a better foul, but at the cost of 3 life. So I think there's a lot of utility in Chiller if you figure a way to use them. And it's quite easy to use, and it's much stronger than a lot of C tier, so that's why it's in B tier. Next up, we have the cards that actually begins to be quite strong, in my opinion. Herald, 1-1. It's basic stats. It's fine. But once during your turn, you may look at the top card of your deck, and then you may put it at bottom or leave it on top. And for consistency, it's so nice, as well as having synergy with a lot of effects like Joyringer. You can just have Herald and then put a gem or hero blend on the bottom of your deck and use Joyringer to utilize that. As well as before you get all your blends set up, you can make sure you draw into the card you want. So whenever there is a gem line that fits Herald, it's always a considerance for me if I want to play Herald or not. So that's why it's an A tier. It's a really good effect for consistency wise. It has some synergy with its gem line, and as well as other heroes like Dexter, even though and then there's also, I forgot her name, but that hero that says look at the top card of your deck. If it's a gem, put it into hand, or if not, discard it. You can always make sure that you will get a gem through that, or not check when it's not. So there's a lot of synergies that it has with the effect, apart from just allowing you to draw into the cards you want and make sure you get the draws that you want. So that's why it's in A tier. Angel switching around is really great, even if your opponent is not switching you around. Being able to react and switch into where you want to be is always great. 2D attack wouldn't usually be that great, but because you can get around and attack into 0 defenses all the time, it becomes quite good in the same way as Glacier, but Angel already has the benefit of being able to move your heroes around to where they need to be as well, and not just being an egocentric effect. So that's why I like it quite a bit, and I find it up here in A tier. And Usher as the last one in A tier. It's a 1-0, so we don't really care about the attack. When you blend this, you may attach a gem from your hand. So this is a good utility. You get to cheat out some heroes before you otherwise would. So in that sense, it's quite amazing. The thing is, because Gemblender is quite slow generally, and especially when it comes to card draw, you can run out of gems really fast. So that's why it's not in S tier, but just barely there, because it doesn't really manage to. You can end up running out of gems before you actually are fully set up. So that's wouldn't necessarily speed up your final position if you don't get around this. So there are some restrictions on your deck building that you need a lot of more gems to make sure you always get to utilize Usher's effect without having turns down the line where you sit without gems while you want to attach them. So if you can build this into together with cards that allow you to get more gems in hand and so on, that actually will utilize this acceleration that you have with Usher, it is really strong. And for S tier, because gems are so necessary in Gemblenders, it's no surprise that both of these works on getting gems. That's just straight up one of the strongest things you can. And Cone just puts this to max and says, I'm just going to sit here and whatever other blends that you get down, I'm going to discard and find gems on. So it utilizes, you can utilize a lot of effects that you only want to use once, or you can only use when they blend, and you just get a lot of gems out of them, while just sitting there with 2 defense, slowing down your opponent until you have all the cards you want. So it's really strong in that sense. And even if it's the only one, you just cone it itself, discard itself to find gem. And just finding gems is really, really strong in Gemblenders, because you need a lot of different, high variety of gems. So that's why I put in S tier. It's easy to utilize. It's something where you're just like, oh, it's difficult to find gems in general. So finding a level 2 blend makes you think of like that gem line, blend line. All of a sudden, like, you just look at Cone and say, what can I build around this? That's how strong it is. And the same goes on with Bishop, though it is not. It doesn't find as many gems as Cone does. It has the added benefit of also being able to find a level 3 blend at its current state, at least, which can propel your deck into its next phase if you rely on a lot of different level 3 blends. It can find them for you, and it's extremely good. It's meta defining. It's a +1 if you find Bishop with Hickory. Hickory essentially becomes a +2 on each of them, so that's a +6. Because its Bishop is so easy to find, even if you can only use it 3 times, it finds all that you need, and that's why it's so great. It makes sure your deck will run as you want it to, and that's why it's top of the tier in Gemblenders for all the level 2 blends in set 1. And that's my ranking of them. Please let me know if you disagree and why. And I think I'll just be silent now, and thank you for watching. See you around.